All right, thank you guys. Welcome to our Major League Baseball video here today. For Tuesday, June 8th, my name is Brock Page and I do sports picks for free right here on YouTube. If you want to see which one of these YouTube picks I'm actually betting on personally here today, don't forget to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage. Guys, we are currently 6-0 in our last 6 NBA tier package picks on my Patreon website. And the good news is this: we have another NBA tier package pick going off here this evening. Red hot package right now. We're going to try to keep this thing going. We're also coming fresh off a solid 4-1 day in our 5 premium sports picks on that Patreon page. We currently have over 1,000 members who are signed up and active on that site. And if you want to join those folks and get in on the action, link for that page is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/BrockPage. With that, guys, we got ourselves a pretty big slate of Major League Baseball, so let's go ahead and dive into it. The Braves take on the Phillies, 7:05 p.m. Eastern first pitch. The Philadelphia Phillies are -160 at home with a total at 9 runs. Aaron Nola is on the bump for the Phillies. Drew Smyly for Atlanta. And as lackluster as Smiley's looked in several starts this year, he still punched out 43 batters in just over 46 innings of work. Now, the Braves have done a pretty nice job cashing in on the run line when they play a fellow National League opponent. They're currently 10-6 against the number in that particular category, and that's good for 63%. Now, Atlanta's definitely not bashful at the plate either. They're currently in the top 10 in the league in scoring on average per contest. Ronald Acuna is second in the majors with 17 home runs, 27 total extra base hits for the outfielder. Meanwhile, Freddie Freeman's hit 13 home runs and walked 39 times already himself. Now they're taking on a Phillies club who's currently 2 games below 500 for the season. And they also have a losing record against divisional opponents. This Phillies lineup is in the bottom 3 in strikeouts at the plate. Philadelphia is actually fanning 10.3 times a game at Citizens Bank Park. Meanwhile, Aaron Nola comes into today's start with just a 4-4 record despite showing some really good stuff this season. And when it comes to the total on this one, 7 out of Philly's last 10 ball games stayed under the total of 9 runs. Meanwhile, the Braves have gone 70% to the under in their last 10 road games against a divisional opponent. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the Atlanta Braves plus 1.5 and the under 9 runs. Next contest, Dodgers versus the Pirates, 7:05 Eastern Standard Time. The LA Dodgers are -$2, totals 8.5. Walker Buehler for the Dodgers, JT Brubaker for Pittsburgh. As good as Brubaker's looked this year, I'm not sure it's going to be enough to beat the Dodgers. He's still coming into today's start with a 4-4 record. And Pittsburgh, they currently have the second fewest wins in the National League. And they also find themselves a dozen games below 500. Now, Pittsburgh's big problem area is at the plate. They're dead last in the majors in scoring, and they're averaging just 3.5 runs per contest. They're taking on a Dodger club who leads the majors in walks at the plate, and they also rank in the top 3 in scoring on average per game. Of course, Max Muncy, he leads the club in homers with 13 of them. The first baseman also has been walked 45 times already. Meanwhile, Chris Taylor is leading the organization with 31 RBI. Now, for some reason, the bats don't come alive here tonight. We're still looking at a Los Angeles club who's in the top 3 in fewest hits allowed per game. And they also strike out over 10 batters per contest as well. Now, Walker Buehler is 4-0 on the season with a 2.82 ERA and a .95 whip. When it comes to the number in this one, LA's gone 70% to the over in their last 10 ball games. Pittsburgh saw 7 out of their last 10 get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward the LA Dodgers -1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. Next contest, Mets Orioles, 7:05 Eastern start time. The New York Mets are -115, numbers 9.5. David Peterson for New York, Bruce Zimmerman for Baltimore. Now, Zimmerman comes into today's start with a .496 ERA and a 1.53 whip. The Orioles have also got themselves the fewest wins in the American League, and they find themselves 17 games under 500. Now, Baltimore's problem area is pitching. They're in the bottom three in the league in runs allowed at home. And speaking of home, Baltimore's been victorious in only 10 of 30 games at Camden Yards. They're taking on a first-place Mets club who won 7 out of their last 10 ball games themselves. Now, New York's currently 3.5 games ahead of the second-place Braves in the division, and their pitching staff is currently leading the majors in fewest hits allowed per game. Now, David Peterson, he struck out 49 batters thus far in the season, despite, some shaky areas, some struggles. And when it comes to the scoring in this one, New York saw 4 out of their last 7 contests against the American League stay under the line. While the O's went 60% to the under in their last 10 ball games themselves, I'm going to lean toward the New York Mets minus 115 and the under 9.5. Next contest, it is going to be Brewers versus the Reds, 7:10 East. The Cincinnati Reds are minus 140, totals 8.5. Sonny Gray for Cincinnati, Adrian Hauser for Milwaukee. Now, Hauser comes into today's start with a 3.86 ERA and 48 strikeouts. The Brewers are also currently atop the National League Central and 4 games ahead of the Reds in the division. And speaking of the division, Milwaukee's played the NL Central fairly tough this year. They're 8-4 straight up in their divisional games on the road. Their pitchers are also leading the majors in road strikeouts, as well as leading the bigs in fewest hits allowed on the road. Milwaukee gives up just 3.4 runs a game when they travel. Now they're taking on a Cincy team who unfortunately has a losing record at the Great American Ballpark. And even worse than that, if you're looking to maybe get some more value with Cincinnati on the run line, they've cashed in on the run line in just 34% of their home games. So just consider that. But anyway, this Reds pitching staff is dead last in the majors in runs allowed, bottom 3 in walks allowed as well. Sonny Gray comes into today's start with a 1-4 record and a 1.34 whip. Now, total-wise, I do think this one should get over the number, since he's 18-8 to the over as the home team, 36-21 to the over for the entire season. Meanwhile, the Brew Crew saw 3 out of their last 5 get over the total of 8.5 runs themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Milwaukee Brewers plus 1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. Next game, Rockies versus the Marlins, 7:10 Eastern first pitch. The Miami Marlins are minus 190, numbers 6.5 juice to the over. Pablo Lopez for the Fish, Antonio Senzatella for Colorado. Senzatella is just 2-5 on the year, with a 4.47 ERA and a 1.41 whip. The Rockies also have the fewest road wins in the entire major leagues. They're a pitiful 4-22 straight up when they travel. They cashed in on the run line in only 30% of those away games. Colorado's dead last in road hits, and they're scoring just 2.4 runs a game away from Coors Field. They're taking on a Marlins club who's still playing 500 baseball despite their recent struggles. They're playing 500 baseball at home, This Miami pitching staff has been really good at home this year, doing a nice job giving these guys a chance to win. They're in the top 5 in fewest home hits allowed, and they're giving up just 3.2 runs a game at Lone Depot Park. Pablo Lopez comes into today's outing with a 2.82 ERA and a 1.15 whip. The righty has also struck out 68 batters in just 67 innings of work. Now, total-wise, not expecting an offensive clinic in this one. The Marlins are 15-9 to the under on their home field, 35-24 to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, the Rockies are 16-10 to the under when they bat first. I'm going to lean toward the Miami Marlins minus 1.5 and the under 6.5 runs. Very tight window there. Next matchup, Mariners, Tigers, 7:10 Eastern start time. Detroit's the $1.30 favorite at home. Totals 8.5 flat. Matthew Boyd for the Tigers. Marco Gonzalez for Seattle. The Seattle Mariners have won 6 out of their last 10 ball games. And they have a winning road record against American League opponents. They're taking on a last place Detroit. Actually, Detroit is not last place. They're in second to last place in the division. But anyway, they're taking on a pretty bad Detroit team who's 11 games below 500 and a dozen games back of first place in their division. Real quick, I can't remember. Are they in last place? I think they are in second to last place, and it's the Twins who are in last place in the division. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I don't know why I did not include that in my notes. But anyway, Detroit's biggest problem is their inability to score. They average just 3.5 runs a game at Comerica Park, and they're striking out over 10.2 times a game. Now, Matthew Boyd also comes into today's start with a 2-6 record on the year. When it comes to the total in this one, Detroit's gone 20-8 to the under at home, 37-22 to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, Seattle saw 6 out of their last 10 stay under the posted number themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Seattle Mariners plus $1.10 and the under 8.5. Next game, Nats Rays 7:10 East. Tampa Bay's minus 240 at home. Total 7.5 runs. Tyler Glasnow for Tampa Bay. John Lester for Washington. Lester's 0-2 with a 4.37 ERA and a 1.43 WHIP. The Nationals have been victorious in only 11 out of 28 road games, and they're in the bottom 10 in the league in scoring. This Nationals lineup averages only 3.8 runs a game. They've also gotten the W in just 8 out of 30 contests as the underdog. They're taking on a first-place Tampa team who's 15 games above 500, and they also won 7 out of their last 10 outings. Tampa's also been excellent in their contests against the National League. They're perfect 5-0 in their 5 home games against a National League opponent. These Tampa pitchers are in the top 10 in striking batters out at home, and they're also giving up just 3.1 runs a game at the Trop. Tyler Glasnow comes into today's start with a 4-2 record and a 2.69 ERA. The righty struck out 106 batters already through just 77 innings of work. He also comes into today's outing with a .92 WHIP. Now, total-wise, Tampa's seen 7 out of their last 10 meetings with Washington stay under the total. Meanwhile, the Nats are 18-10 to the under as the away team, 38-18 to the under for the entire year. I'm going to lean toward the Tampa Bay Rays minus 1.5 and the under 7.5 runs. Next contest, Astros versus the Bo Sox, 7:10 p.m. East. The Houston Astros are minus 120 on the road, totals 10, juice to the over. Framber Valdez for Houston, Martin Perez for Boston. Perez is 4-2 on the year with a 3.09 ERA and 52 strikeouts. Boston's also on a 5-game winning streak. They find themselves 14 games above 500 for the entire season. This Boston lineup can most certainly hit the baseball. They're in the top 3 in both scoring and hits. Rafael Devers leads the majors in runs batted in. He's knocked in 48 runners already, and he also hit 15 homers, which is in the top 10 in the bigs as well. Xander Bogaerts is also batting .321 with 10 homers and 115 total bases. Bogaerts is currently in the top 10 in the majors in batting average. They're taking on a Houston club who lost 2 out of their last 4, scoring just 3 total runs in those couple of losses. The Astros are also playing just .500 baseball on the road, and they rank in the bottom 5 in the league in road walks allowed. And despite how good Framber Valdez has looked in his last couple of outings, he only has 11 total innings under his belt this season, and certainly has a tough task ahead of him with this very powerful Boston lineup. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, I do think these two starting pitchers, they can keep these 2 heavy-hitting lineups at bay for the most part. Boston has also seen 7 out of their last 10 ball games stay under the line, 3-0 to the under in their last trio of games at Fenway. Meanwhile, 2 out of Houston's last 3 road games stayed under the total themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the Boston Red Sox plus $1 and the under 10 runs. Next contest, getting into the 8 o'clock slate. I'm talking about the Giants versus the Rangers, 8:05 Eastern Standard Time. The San Francisco Giants are minus 145, numbers 8. Alex Wood for San Francisco, Jordan Lyles for Texas. And to be honest with you, really no reason for me to lean toward Texas in this one. Lyles is just 2-4 on the season, with a 5.75 ERA and a 1.52 WHIP. The Rangers are also in last place in the AL West. They have the second fewest wins in the entire American League. The Rangers currently find themselves 15 games under 500. And they score only 3.6 runs a game at Globe Life Field. They're taking on a very good San Francisco team who won 7 out of their last 9. The first place Giants are also 15 games above 500 right now. And they give up just 3.7 runs a game when they travel. Alex Wood is 5-3 on the year with a 3.48 ERA and a 1.12 WHIP. The San Francisco pitchers are also leading the entire league in fewest walks per 9. Now, total-wise, San Francisco did see 4 out of their last 7 contests against the American League stay under the line. Meanwhile, the Rangers went 80% to the under in their last 10 ball games themselves. I'm going to lean toward the San Francisco Giants, minus 145, and the under 8 runs. Next contest, Yankees versus the Twins, 8:10 p.m. Eastern first pitch. The New York Yankees are minus 115, totals 9.5, juice to the under. Jordan Montgomery for New York, Michael Pineda for Minnesota. Despite some really good stuff out of Pineda this season, the righty still comes into today's matchup with just a 3-3 record. The Twins are currently 11 games below 500 right now. They've gotten the W in only 12 out of 29 home games. The Twins have also lost 5 out of their last 8 ball games, and they allowed 4 runs or more 6 times during that 8-game stretch. Now they're taking on a Yankees club who, I get it, they haven't been playing the best baseball, lately. But despite their recent struggles, they've got a real good one in Jordan Montgomery on the bump here today. Montgomery comes into today's contest with a 3-1 record and a 3.92 ERA. Excuse me. Now the righty's also struck out 59 batters and has a 1.12 WHIP. This Yankees pitching staff leads the majors in fewest walks allowed on the road. They also give up just 3.8 runs per contest when they travel as well. Now when it comes to the number in this one, New York's gone 17-10 to the under when they bat first. The Yankees are also 37-23 to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, the Twins saw 5 out of their last 8 stay under the total of 9.5 runs themselves. I'm going to lean toward New York Yankees minus $1.15 and the under 9.5 runs. Next contest, Blue Jays versus the White Sox, 8:10 p.m. Eastern start time. The Chicago White Sox are minus 145, numbers 8. Carlos Rodon for Chicago, Robbie Ray for Toronto. Now the Blue Jays have really struggled with American League competition this season. They're just 19-25 straight up when they play against fellow American Leaguers. This Toronto lineup also ranks in the bottom 5 in fewest road walks at the plate. And they're taking on a White Sox club who has the most home wins in baseball right now. Chicago's currently 23-10 straight up at Guaranteed Rate Field. And they're in the top 3 in runs allowed at home. Chicago gives up just 3.03 runs a game on their home field. Carlos Rodon's also taking the mound here tonight. He's 5-2 with a 1.98 ERA. Now the lefty struck out 80 batters in just over 54 innings pitched. Rodon also comes into today's start with a .82 WHIP. Now total-wise, Chicago's seen a bunch of unders at Guaranteed Rate Field. 21-12 to the under as the home team. 5-2 to the under in their last 7 home games as well. While Toronto's gone 18-13 to the under when they travel themselves, I'm going to lean toward the Chicago White Sox minus 145 and the under 8 runs. Next contest, Indians versus the Cardinals, 8:15 Eastern Standard Time. The Cleveland Indians are minus 170, total 7.5. Shane Bieber for Cleveland, Carlos Martinez for St. Louis. Martinez is just 3-5 on the season with a 5.83 ERA. The Cardinals are also on a 5-game losing streak, and they also dropped 7 out of their last 8. This Cardinal pitching staff also walks more batters than any other team in the game. They're taking on an Indians club who got the W in 3 out of their last 5 themselves. Now, the Cleveland Indians are also in the top 10 in striking batters out, top 10 in fewest hits allowed on the road. Shane Bieber's on the hill here tonight, 6-3 record with a 3.08 ERA. The righties also struck out a staggering 117 batters already thus far in the season. Now, total-wise, 6 out of Cleveland's last 10 meetings with St. Louis stayed under the line. Meanwhile, the Cardinals have gone 18-11 to the under at Busch Stadium. I'm going to lean toward the Cleveland Indians minus 170 and the under 7.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Royals versus the Angels. 9:38 Eastern first pitch. The LA Angels are minus 165, numbers 8.5. Andrew Heaney for the Angels, Chris Bubich for Kansas City. Now, Bubich has thrown 34 complete innings thus far in this season. He's yet to record a loss. He also comes into today's matchup with a 2.12 ERA. Now, the Royals have been excellent on the run line here recently. They're 3-1 against the number in their last 4 road games, 70% against the number in their last 10 outings at any location. The Royals are in the top 5 in fewest hits allowed on the road, and they're also giving up only 3.9 runs a game when they bat first. Now, they're taking on an Angels club who's 4 games below 500, and they also give up more free passes at home than any other team in baseball. This Los Angeles pitching staff is also in the bottom 3 in runs allowed, and they've cashed in on the run line in only 40% of their home games. Now, when it comes to the pitching here tonight, Andrew Heaney, he's on the mound here this evening for the Angels. 4.76 ERA coming into tonight's start. When it comes to the total on this one, LA's 22-10 to the over against the American League at home. Meanwhile, the Royals saw their last 4 straight road games get over the total themselves. 9-1 to the over in their last 10. I'm going to lean toward the Kansas City Royals plus 1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. Next contest, it is going to be Diamondbacks versus the Athletics, 9:40 p.m. Eastern start time. The Oakland A's are minus 220 with the total at 8.5 runs. Chris Bassett for Oakland, John Duplantier for Arizona, or Duplantier. I struggle with that name. Duplantier. I don't know how you say it. Duplantier. Well, regardless of how you say it, he's got a 9.35 ERA and a 1.85 WHIP. The Diamondbacks currently have the fewest wins in Major League Baseball, and they're already 21 games below 500. Arizona's dead last in hits allowed, bottom 3 in striking batters out. They've also gotten the W in only 9 out of 34 road games. They're taking on a first-place Oakland club who won 4 out of their last 5 ball games themselves. As a matter of fact, the A's averaged 8.3 runs per contest in those 4 victories during that span. This Oakland pitching staff ranks in the top 3 in baseball in fewest walks allowed per 9. Chris Bassett also comes into today's start with a 5-2 record and a 1.04 WHIP. The righty's got himself a 3.53 ERA along with 80 strikeouts. Now, total-wise, Oakland's last 4 straight home games all stayed under the number. They also saw 7 out of their last 10 ball games at any location stay under the line as well. Meanwhile, the Diamondbacks are 20-14 to the under when they travel themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Oakland A's minus 1.5 and the under 8.5 runs. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup for the show. It is going to be Cubs versus the Padres, 10:10 Eastern Standard Time. The San Diego Padres are minus 185, totals 8.5, juice to the under. Dinelson Lamet for San Diego, Zach Davies for Chicago. Now, Davies is just 2-3 on this season with a 4.94 ERA and a 1.68 WHIP. The righty has just 33 strikeouts compared to 29 walks. The Cubbies have also struggled on the road this season, 12 and 17 straight up when they travel, bottom 3 in the league in road hits allowed. They're taking on a Padres club who's 21 and 12 straight up at Petco Park. They're also a dozen games over 500, and they lead the majors in striking batters out. This Padres pitching staff is also holding their opponents to only 2.9 runs a game at Petco Park. Dinelson Lamet has a 2.50 ERA along with 21 strikeouts. And just keep in mind, the righty's only got 18 full innings of work under his belt thus far in the year. Now, total-wise, San Diego's 19 and 11 to the under against the National League at home. They also saw 7 out of their last 10 meetings with the Cubs stay under the number. Meanwhile, Chicago went 60% to the under in their last 10 ball games themselves. I'm going to lean toward the San Diego Padres minus 185 and the under 8.5. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our quick pick recap, powered to you by my Patreon website. I like Atlanta plus 1.5 under 9 runs. LA Dodgers minus 1.5 over 8.5. New York Mets minus 115 under 9.5. Milwaukee plus 1.5 over 8.5. Miami minus 1.5 under 6.5 runs. Seattle plus $1.10 under 8.5. Tampa Bay minus 1.5 under 7.5 runs. Boston plus $1 under 10 runs. San Francisco minus 145 under 8. New York Yankees minus 115 under 9.5. Chicago White Sox minus 145 under 8 runs. Cleveland minus $1.70 under 7.5. Kansas City plus 1.5 over 8.5 runs. Oakland minus 1.5 under 8.5. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are coming fresh off a 4-in-1 day and our 5 premium sports picks on my Patreon website. And that's going to improve our record to 6-0 in our last 6 NBA tier package picks on that Patreon page. I'm going to lean toward the San Diego Padres minus 185 and the under 8.5 runs. Of that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. With that said, happy Tuesday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.